Back, guys. Thanks for tuning back in. If you guys did not see the latest video, we're gonna go ahead and install As you guys already know, the Evo's taken apart behind us because we had that little bit of an issue with the little ring retaining pin on the pressure plate. So we're gonna go ahead and replace that today with the Monolock Collar. Everything finally came in the mail. We've been waiting on this stuff for like a week for everything to get together. But since we got it all here, we'll go over the entire parts list, we'll go over the tool list, and then we'll go ahead and jump right into this project over here. All right, so jumping right over to the table here to see what we got going on, what we've been waiting on, all the parts included, and then we'll jump over to the tools. As you guys can see, we did do a resurfaced flywheel. I did bring this to Untitled Clutch, like I said in the last video, and they said it was well within tolerance. These things are actually made out of billet, which is pretty cool, they told me. And they resurfaced it nice and simple. There was no warping done to it, so we're gonna reuse that. Again, this is very temporary because as you know, we're doing the triple disc in here very soon. So this is just a little hold me over clutch for the time being. And then we're gonna go ahead and put another pressure plate in here with another Mitsubishi stamped one and another Excetti stock Mitsubishi clutch. So this is all OEM parts going back in. I'm gonna be doing everything down to Torque Spec. We went ahead and got the Mitsubishi Motors flywheel bolts. There's 7 different flywheel bolts. That's the little number you guys are going to need if you want those exact ones. 7 of those. I did a new throwout bearing because when you do a clutch job, definitely do a throwout bearing. That's a part that could have an issue, and there's no reason not to fix that since it's so cheap. And this is the Monolock one-piece collar that will be going onto the new pressure plate and actually completely fix the issue that we had with this ring popping apart, which I kind of want to give you some more detail. If you look at this thing, this is actually the new one since I did have this over here and we were upgrading and I took off the little piece. And again, you know, that's the one piece. This is the little pin in the back that holds it. As you see, this is the new one. So this new one has 0 gap right there, like absolutely 0 gap and clearly no bend to it. And this is the one that bent off. So I didn't even notice the first time, but that gap is enormous. And it bent the ring completely when that popped apart. Big factor of that is not only is it a 2-piece, so it did come apart and did have the issue, and this would fix that, but also we went ahead and got a Radium clutch fork stop because the clutch fork most likely hyperextended itself when it comes back, and it pulled it too far, bending the ring and then popping it apart. So you put this here, which this little thing stops, which you guys will see in a second. It stops the fork from being able to come back too far, but that's a super cheap, easy part. So that was the last piece we were waiting on. So we'll go ahead and get straight into this project and we'll show you exactly how to install the clutch on the Evo 10. Also, before we get into this project, just to mention something else, we do have the AMS Evo 10 clutch master cylinder conversion. At first, I wasn't sure if this was the issue, so I went ahead and bought that like day one just to get it fixed really quick, which has not happened now. But since we do have it in a separate video, we're gonna be doing that with a new slave cylinder, showing you separately completely how to take that out and get that done really easy. So stay tuned for that. And we also, again, next video we'll be doing the new wrap on the sidewinder turbo manifold, as well as the downpipes and all the dump tubes and all that good stuff. And while we're at it, we'll just point out obviously that everything just changed. We went ahead and chromed out the Precision 6766 turbo through Boost Lab, which Boost Lab provides all our other stuff and all of our local support. And we also went ahead and took the chrome piping, which gets hazed over so easily, and you'd have to work on it at least once a week if you wanted to make it look halfway decent even. So instead, I went ahead and got it wrinkle black powder coated all the way around on all of the piping. We're gonna get a new filter because that's disgusting. And again, we kind of polished this, so we're gonna have the sidewinder and it's gonna be nice and mounted up still, and still, I think, giving me the look I'm looking for. All right, perfect. And the tool lineup today is gonna be some type of longer extension, a shorter extension. You're gonna have a breaker bar, flathead, hammer, a ratchet with a matching 10mm, 12mm, 17mm, and a 22mm. This Allen key is gonna be a 6mm Allen key. You also see our clutch alignment tool, which is a 23 spline by 1. This is the exact part number if you want to get the certain one that I have. You also have some type of grease to grease some stuff up, and brake part cleaner to clean off the surfaces of the pressure plate and flywheel as we install those. So with that being said, grab everything you got and let's go ahead and get right into this. All right, so those are the tools that you're gonna need. One, we go ahead and grab our flywheel now that's resurfaced and or you got a new one. We'll grab our 7 bolts right here. You're also gonna need 2 different tools to do this. You're gonna go ahead and need a 22mm socket if you are gonna hold the crank on the opposite side with a wrench like this. Obviously, there's that little tool that you can use, which I'll point down there in a second and show you the exact part number you guys would need if you want to find that. I don't have that tool, so I'm going to be holding the crank from this side. And you're going to need a torque wrench too, obviously. So this is my torque wrench right here. And this says it has the 17mm on there. So I'll get down there with the torque wrench. We'll get all these bolts. There's a 2-stage tightening to these flywheels. So we'll go ahead and show you exactly how to do that. The exact star pattern you need to make it happen in. And yeah, let's get it. All right, so now we got our flywheel bolts, and our torque wrench over there. Jumping over to the other side of the car, the passenger side, you're gonna go right under this, and you're gonna see this pulley right here. This pulley is your crankshaft. So all you're gonna do is take your 22 with your wrench over here, and you're gonna be putting it on there. Now, when you spin this to be righty-tighty, since you're gonna be doing the other side, and you'll be spinning this way, consider that this will be spinning like lefty-loosey. So you're gonna put that wrench on there. What I'm gonna do is pry it up against, there's like a metal piece down here I can't show you right now, but I'm gonna take that, pry it against that so it has no movement. It's impossible to move, impossible to spin that. And then I'll go ahead and get to the other side with somebody obviously holding this so it's not falling on me or something. And just holding that in position, I'll go ahead and be able to torque the other side down. All right, and that's exactly what it looks like. Down there, it's coming up under here. Can't show you again. And this is hitting something already. So it's gonna go right there, and someone's just gonna come over here and hold this with their hand to make sure it doesn't move out of its groove, and I can tighten the other side. All right, so torque wrench on the other side on the crankshaft, pushed against something so it won't move anywhere. You're gonna go ahead and flip over your flywheel, because as you can see in this picture, this is actually calling to put engine oil on the thread of the crankshaft and the bolt seat area. So that is the crankshaft right there, which that's the rear main seal around it. So that's the rear main seal around, and the crankshaft is right in the center where the bolt seat area, and the bolt seat area is this, because this is where it actually sits on there. So we're gonna be lightly putting a little on there as well as on the crankshaft, and then we're gonna go ahead and you'll notice when you put it in there, the flywheel only goes in a certain way. So you'll be able to naturally just get it on there like you'll see me do in a second. And then I'm just gonna hand tighten these bolts real nice and light. And then we're gonna do the 2 torque specs that you need to do for the flywheel. And then we'll go ahead and get to installing the rest of the clutch. What you guys did see me do there was I just took the drill and just got these all the way down just to make it nice and easy for me. I did not drill these down or tighten these at all. These are about, you know, an 1/8 inch off of each one of those. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take your torque wrench, and you're gonna wanna do 2 different torques to this. So the first torque we're gonna do is 30 pounds all the way around. All right, so when you do your 30 pounds around the first time around, there is a star pattern you're supposed to do. And as you can see in this little picture right here, this is the exact pattern, but I will point it out and put a number near them. This is gonna be number 1. And then you jump over to number 2, drop down to 3, back up to 4 over here, over 5 right here, 6, and then you'll be up at 7. We're gonna do those all at 30 pounds, and then we're gonna jump to the next one. Of course, you have your person on the backside holding the crankshaft against something, so it's not spinning on you. You do 30 pounds, and then right after that, you'll see us do 96 pounds. All right, now all those ones are torqued down to 30 pounds, so you're gonna go ahead and adjust your wrench to 96 foot-pounds of torque. Again, somebody on the other side holding that crank nice and tight, and you're gonna do that in the exact same start pattern. And that's that. As you guys can see, the crankshaft did spin on me a tiny touch, but I did make the adjustment since I was already on one. See, we did our hand tightening first, and then we went down to 30 pounds all the way around in the exact star pattern that you need, and then went back and adjusted to a 96 foot-pounds. It did 96 foot-pounds in the same exact star pattern, making this nice and flush for us and completely even. And now you're just gonna take some brake part cleaner, and you're gonna safely clean this entire surface off so we can go ahead and get the next portion of our clutch aligned and put in. All right, so now that you have your flywheel all tightened down to Torque Spec, your 30 pounds first, and then you're gonna be doing your 96 in the exact star pattern as I just showed. You're gonna jump back over and you have your pressure plate and your disc going in next. First thing first is we do have our pressure plate here. As you remember, we did bend the little retaining ring that went on this, so we did upgrade to the Monolock Collar. It does provide the two little spring things that go onto it, so we're just gonna slide those on. You literally just push this on top like this, and you're just gonna give a nice even push for it. And there you go. So now this is nice and sprung up on there. You can go ahead and flip this over. This is another disc surface, so we're going to be taking some more brake part cleaner as we did on the flywheel, and we'll just be applying this to here, cleaning this off nice and clean. I'm going to do this over there on the floor though, so it's not spraying all over the place. So next thing we'll get into is your disc. So what you're going to do next is after your pressure plate's all prepared, get that under the car, get it all sprayed off nice and clean, have your 6 bolts handy and ready. You're going to go ahead and grab your disc, and let's bring this over to the transmission, and we're going to get this prepped, and we're going to put it right onto the motor right after this. All right, now with your disc over here, your grease, and the throwout bearing doesn't need to be here, but down here, this is the throwout bearing. We'll be replacing that in 1 second, and I'll show you how to do that nice and simple. But first things first, so we can go ahead and get the disc in, what we're going to be doing is taking some of this grease, and we're going to put some on the shaft right here. And then since this matches up, we're going to shimmy that on and off a couple times, just so it's nice and lubricated in the inside of there, as well as on that portion. And then we're going to wipe this off. Make sure to wipe this off really good, because remember, you have your pressure plate on one side and your flywheel on the other. And considering if you got any grease or oil or anything like that on there, that could really jack up the connection to this. So be really careful and just get a thin layer on the inside of this, and then lube that thing up. And then we're going to go ahead and put the clutch in. Alright guys, now with your clutch disc back there with a super light amount of grease in the inside of that, with it all wiped down the outside, you drop down, you have your pressure plate right here. You're going to grab your 12 millimeter and put it on your torque wrench. You're going to be setting it to a 13 pounds of torque for the 6 bolts. So a light 13, we'll hand tighten all these and then work our way into the 13 pounds despite it's a low number, just to make it nice and even. We just took our brake part cleaner, cleaned this thing off nice and simple, where we have the Monolock Collar in. So let's go ahead and put our alignment tool on there with the disc, as you'll see me do in a second. We'll put the pressure plate over that, and then you'll see me slowly start tightening these things down, and we'll get it to spec. As you guys can see, I just lined this thing up. We got everything perfectly proper. You want to hold this extraordinarily tight because you want to make sure this is not off at all. So this thing all the way sunken in, disc on, pressure plate on. These are all hand tight. As you can see, I just hand tighten them with this just to get it as nice and even as possible. We'll go back with a torque wrench now, hit these all at 13. We're just going to make our own star pattern, hitting this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And we're going to do that one time around for the 13 pounds. And then we are good to go. Just to point out and give a little extra tip here, as you are tightening this down and aligning this thing up, there's going to be 3 bolt holes on each side. There's going to be 6 screws, but there's going to be 9 little holes. So each one will have a 10 millimeter, a nipple, and then a 10 millimeter again. As you can see, 10, nipple, and then 10. And same thing on the far side. So that might help you a little bit when you're going to go ahead and lining up the pressure plate on the outside and you're trying to hold that disc in the center straight. All right. As you can see, perfectly aligned over here. Job is complete for that portion. The flywheel is down to Torque Spec. We have our disc perfectly aligned with our proper alignment tool. Monolock collar on the pressure plate, and the pressure plate down to 13 pounds, all the way around in an even star pattern. So now we can go ahead and jump over to our transmission for the last portion of this video. We're going to jump over, and we do have our new throwout bearing that we're going to be installing over here, as well as something I forgot, which was the clutch fork stop that we'll be adding to the transmission to hopefully make it to where this thing never hyperextends again and can never bend out, despite it's not going to mess up that little Monolock collar that we just put in. All right, so now on to changing out the throwout bearing on the actual transmission. As you can see, this thing is already greased up. If you haven't already done it, you need to get some type of grease on there and get it nice and even spread throughout there. You should have done that with your clutch disc, but whatever. You're gonna go ahead and jump in, grab your throwout bearing, get a 10mm shorter extension, longer extension, flathead, and a hammer. You're gonna be only doing this to, I think it's 17 or 19 inch pounds, so it's only about 1.5 pounds with a torque wrench, so you most likely won't have to even mess with that thing, but just in case. All right, so first thing, go up to right here. You have this little plug right here. You're gonna go ahead and pull this thing out. Just like that. And then you're gonna go ahead and down here, you're gonna have a little nipple hole punch right here. Now this is made out of metal, so you're gonna have to put something on it like this. I'm just gonna use my long extension, put it on there, and hammer it out just like this. And as you can see, that just popped it right out. It's just like a little metal cap. So with both those pieces out, now you're gonna have a 10mm screw right here. Just gonna take out this 10mm, and then we'll be able to go through the top over here and push this pin out through the bottom. Now to release all the pressure off from these springs right here, these springs are connected in the back right here, and then they go over this little section. So you're just gonna get a screwdriver like this, and just get it just enough. To get it over the screw like that. And then same thing on the other side, get right under it in between like that, and just give it a little pop, and then now it just releases. So now you're gonna be able to take your long extension, you're gonna be putting it right through in the top right here just like this, putting it on this, and you can just push it right on through without even having a hammer. Now with this pulled out, our springs, you're gonna wanna take these and remember exactly how they went. Mind you, those like that. You're gonna be able to slide these out. As you saw that little rubber piece fall down, those are little spacers in there, so you're gonna wanna make sure you take these out and have these things handy. There's like a little rubber spacer. So one on each of those on the inside, and then we'll put the spring back on in a second after we change out the throwout bearing. All right, and there you have it, the old throwout bearing. Again, nothing was necessarily wrong with it. It wasn't making like a ton of noise, but doing a clutch job at 60,000 miles for the first time, we're gonna go ahead and just change out this cheaper like piece. There's our fresh to death one right here. So I did not show it, but you can go ahead and put some grease on the inside of the throwout bearing, as well as on the shaft here and the clutch fork tips, so that all of those can slide nice and easy as you use the clutch. All right, so now after tossing on the new throwout bearing, you saw me align the fork again. Now you're just gonna be taking your pin and going right back through the bottom. Before you do, clean this thing off and go ahead and grease this thing up really good, and then it'll be able to slide in through nice and easy. All right, so now with everything greased up here on the holes here and as well as the shaft, that sounded weird. You're gonna go ahead and grab these two little washers. You're gonna go ahead and place those right back on there where they need to be. And then you're gonna get your springs, and as you push the pin through, you're just gonna align the pins on both sides. This one going up here, hooking obviously against there like that, and then you just push it back over with a screwdriver or with your hand, and that will be that. All right, so now with all the springs back in and this properly aligned with the bolt, you're just going to be putting your screw back in, your 10 millimeter. And this, as I've already stated, this claims the 17 inch-pounds of torque that you can put on there. And I guess 17 inch-pounds is only 1.4 pounds of torque, so we're not going to use a torque wrench. But instead, we're going to grab our 10 millimeter. We're going to grab it only by the head right here, opposed to buying at the end, getting too much leverage. And you'll just put it over there and just give it a baby little quarter turn, and then that will be that for that. All right, so after this thing is torqued down, you're going to go ahead and just take your pins, and you're going to be reapplying these behind it. You should be able to just push them with your fingers. Just make sure it works properly. And you are in the game. So now go ahead and just take your little baby cap, put it back down here in the bottom and give it a little hammer tap. And then as well as taking this little bad boy right here and putting it on the top again. And then you'll be good to go. All right, and now with the new throwout bearing working perfect over here, you're going to jump back, and typically if you're upgrading right now, you'll see your slave cylinders right here. We have ours off obviously already. So you're just going to take out your two 12 millimeter bolts right here. After you take those off, you do have your clutch fork stop right here. So this is basically going to go on right here on top of your slave cylinder. So your slave cylinder is going to stay in the exact same spot. You're going to put this on top, and then we're going to put the new two provided bolts in here. If you do want to put these down to Torque Spec, 13 to 15 pounds in between that range. So 13 to 15 foot-pounds of torque is what these two bolts go down to. All right, and there it was. So as you guys saw, I just put this hand tight on because when I put the transmission back in a second here, I'm gonna have to put the slave cylinder in between this, and then you put this on top. Just like this picture right here, you can see slave cylinders there, and then you have this clutch fork stop on top of it. You can also obviously see how that screw is a little more adjusted out than mine is right now, because you'll be adjusting this portion out further or closer, and then eventually bringing the nut down there and tightening that against this so this doesn't go, anywhere. Because when you connect this, when you put the transmission back in and you connect your throwout bearing, that throwout bearing will be connected to the pressure plate where that Monolock collar is. So it'll hold itself somewhere, in this area. What you're going to be doing now is taking that screw and bringing this thing in and out until you have naturally a 1/16 gap or 1.5 millimeter gap in between that. And what that's going to do is prevent it to where if it ever hyperextends itself and goes too far again, it will actually just bump that screw and you won't have the problem that I just ran into. All right, and that's that. So next step is I'm just gonna wait for one of my buddies to come over and give me an extra hand to get this transmission back in. Next video, we'll be doing that turbo kit install, the sidewinder kit, as well as doing fiberglass wraps on all the manifolds, downpipes, and everything else like that. In the future, if you guys are wondering, I will be doing a transmission removal video. This is my first time taking this transmission out, so I didn't want to get too crazy and do it the first time around. But when I do the triple disc coming up here, I will be taking this transmission out and making it broken down nice and simple so you can do it yourself at home. Thank you everyone so much for subscribing recently and all the future subscribers. I appreciate all the support. I'm going to continue cranking out these videos. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please do comment in the section below. As normal, I'll answer those as soon as possible. Besides that, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.